As shown in the previous segment, pre-writing is the process of assembling and organizing the materials and ideas needed before actual writing begins. Whether the assignment requires hours of research or fleeting moments of contemplation, writing cannot happen effectively if organized thought does not precede it. A carefully crafted writing prompt and explicit grading rubric can guide students to relevant and fruitful pre-writing activities. If an instructor elects to evaluate student performance based on written responses, and in order for students to perform assigned writing process tasks effectively, especially pre-writing, the assignment must be topically specific, but not too restrictive, and the rubrics must be clear about the evaluated expectations. In order to ensure that students engage appropriate pre-writing strategies, instructors must decide what pedagogical goals the assignment hopes to achieve. No matter the instructional course involved, curriculum objectives are paramount and provide the fodder for the students' written products to follow. Clarity in the writing prompt regarding the specific course content to be mastered reduces a student's opportunity to misconstrue the assignment and respond unsatisfactorily. Although the rubric for an assignment explicitly lists evaluation criteria, a well-structured prompt, by dictating the depth and breadth of the writing to be done, implicitly or explicitly answers questions of purpose, audience, voice, and other mechanical issues such as length or citation format. Because the purpose of pre-writing is to prepare to write a response, instructor prompts should foster student questions regarding the finer points of the argument rather than create confusion about the assigned topic. The diverse student body appreciated on today's campuses brings with it a plethora of challenges when it comes to communicating an instructor's vision of what constitutes successful completion of the assignment. When a student says, "I don't understand," several factors may be at play. The student may not understand the course material well enough to engage in an in-depth analysis. They might not understand why they're being asked to respond in writing in a non-writing course. Or their English language proficiency could limit their comprehension. Quite often, the source of confusion is the inability to understand what the prompt is asking them to do. In any case of incomplete understanding, it's incumbent upon the instructor to answer as many hows and whys as possible in the initial presentation of the assignment. The language used within the prompt must clearly spell out the issues the students will write about, but also be open-ended enough that students are free to explore the topic to the depth the instructor seeks. Sometimes professors are proud of their expansive vocabularies and construct prompts as if they are the ones trying to pass an assignment, leaving their students, especially English language learners, wallowing in the proverbial dust. Precise, concise word choice in the assignment helps guide students' research and other pre-writing activities and can allay the dread fear of drifting off topic. Expressing oneself in writing is one of the most daunting and personal challenges students face in the academic world. Most students want to present. Expressing oneself in writing is one of the most daunting and personal challenges students face in the academic world. Most students want to Expressing oneself in writing is one of the most daunting and personal challenges students face in the academic world. Most students want to present their professors with work that at least approximates what the instructor has in mind. Therefore, they must have as clear a picture as possible of how that should look. Providing sample essays to model the desired product and involving student input in drafting the prompt provides clarity, establishes communication relationships, and increases understanding and confidence for reticent writers. One of the most stressful times in a student's life is the time between turning in a paper and getting it back graded. Including a rubric as a part of the assignment packet removes much of the perceived mystery about evaluation, so instructors must provide explicit guidelines for students to follow, which dictate how they may successfully perform their writing task. Writing rubrics are the most effective method of communicating the writing rules and grading requirements. A link to the QEP writing rubric can be found on the QEP Frequently Asked Questions for Faculty page. Although it is quite detailed, QEP course instructors have discretion about which elements of writing will take priority in evaluating a given assignment. Although not every assignment requires the detailed assessment the QEP rubric requires, Although not every assignment requires the detailed assessment the QEP rubric offers, basic elements such as spelling, appropriate use of vocabulary, and freedom from major sentence errors should be major components of any writing-based grade. Writing-intensive and writing-enhanced course instructors can also take advantage of the expertise and experience of the writing specialists in the Academic Center for Writing if they have any questions about prompt writing, the writing process, grading rubrics, or any other aspect of academic writing for which they seek clarification. In the next step, I'm going to show you a few sample rubrics and prompts from professors here at Mountain View College. I've selected these because these are papers that we see here at the Writing Center quite often, and I think they exemplify some of the main characteristics in a prompt and in a rubric that we would like to see you incorporate in your QEP certified course. Now we're going to take a look at some actual writing assignment prompts from Mountain View professors across several disciplines, including English, history, and biology. Afterwards, we'll take a look at the QEP writing rubric and then a derivative rubric that's used here on campus as well. Notice that there are common elements to every prompt, regardless of the discipline. These elements are color-coded for easy identification throughout this little presentation. Any of the parts that are not highlighted are specific directions, guidelines, warnings, or explanations from the individual professors. Being that we are discussing the writing process, it only seemed natural that our first example would come from an English class. Right away, our professor lets the student know what they're going to be writing and why they are going to be writing it. Next, we have the topic. This is going to come directly from course materials. Most of the students are very concerned with the green section. These are the guidelines, these are the requirements. Most of these are fairly common throughout any writing assignment as far as double-spaced, size 12-point font, 1-inch margins all around. Most often you'll see Times New Roman, but sometimes you'll see Calibri or Arial or another format. Generally, word art and things like that are not welcome in academic papers. The students are most concerned with the paper length. How long does it have to be? 2.5 to 3 pages in this case. And then finally, we talk about the works cited page. In purple, we have our warnings, and warnings often have words like must. You must use quotes from the text, and a works cited page must be included. Our next example comes from history, and right away we have our topic and our topic question. This is the prompt. This is where your student is going to build their thesis statement using Frederick Douglass's argument that slavery victimized everybody involved, not merely the slaves. So each student's going to have to discuss the groups that also were victimized by this institution. In yellow here we have our purpose. This is an argumentative paper. Tells you exactly what sources you have to use, why are you going to read it, why are you going to write it, to prove your proficiency in course materials and demonstrate the ability to synthesize and analyze materials. In green, we have our guidelines, MLA format, just like we saw in the English example. Works cited page, 2 to 3 pages in length. Here we have a 2 full page minimum. Just starting a second page doesn't make it a 2-page paper. 12-point Times New Roman 1-inch margin, double spaced. Cover page, explicitly identifying your paper. This is the only way you can identify this paper, so that's one of those requirements. And in a kind of unusual twist, the thesis statement here will be bolded. We have a lot of warnings in this paper. Do not plagiarize are the first words. These are guidelines and warnings combined, so rather than highlight, I left them stand the way they are. Stringing massive quotes together and calling it an essay. Quotes always have to be in context and must be introduced and explained. Demonstrate knowledge of your course material. Analyze, interpret texts. The whole text. You can't cherry pick. Usual standards of good writing. Correct grammar, punctuation, spelling. Our final example comes to us from biology. We start away with our topic choice. We can choose either stem cell research or mosquito control for West Nile virus. Straight into our guidelines, 6 to 7 pages, 5 to 700 words, cover page requirements, writing requirements. Notice that we have an Arial font here and APA format. This professor does a really nice job of providing the student with resources for good sources, where to find their research, and then later on, how to use the APA format, including resources that the student can get to and examples. Our warnings here are short and sweet. Don't use Wikipedia, obviously, since the professor is very concerned about the quality of the sources used. And also that the students must bring their paper into the Writing Center and have a specialist look it over and give them a report to give to their instructor. Finally, we have a warning that this paper is going to be submitted online, not printed up and handed to the professor like we did back in the old days. And if it is not submitted to this particular website, the paper will not be graded. So that gives us a quick overview of a couple of our assignments and how a prompt could and should look before a student actually sits down to begin their pre-writing activities. Now we're going to take a look at a couple of rubrics. These are similar because the first one is the original QEP Writing Assessment Rubric to be used here at Mountain View College. And the next one is a little bit of a scaled down version, but not too much. The important points are still here. In this one, we're looking at the process itself, the 4 steps: pre-writing, composing, revising, and editing, paper development, proper usage, the use of information resources, and critical thinking writing components. Now, as a QEP instructor in disciplines that maybe don't ordinarily focus on writing, you do have some discretion. We have a 3-point scale on the QEP rubric, and here we have a 5-point scale.